Greetings, this is the third and probably the last video on the tutorial on how to get the files ready for processing for the poster for this trip to Taiwan where I'll be presenting them. I want to show you one thing that I already made a mistake on. I had to go back and fix a few things. The data format from the data from a while back is shown here where you have a date and time, and then you have what this RNF means rainfall. And for some of the earlier files, you'll see that each tip is represented by a 0.01, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to order these by size. Let's see. So this here represents, the 0.42 represents 42 tips. This 0.3 represents 30 tips. In other words, it's a decimal. It's the number of tips divided by 100. And there's a reason for that, because it thought each tip was 1/100th of an inch. You don't even have to worry about why that's the case, but for some of the data, wherever you see this RNF, this is the raw data that we're collecting. If it's a decimal point something, then when we do the conversions, we have to do them differently than when it's an integer, like a 1, which is what the more recent data show. So I'm going to undo this so everything's back to the way it was. Get rid of these two columns that shouldn't have been blanks anyway. There we go. So on more recent data, for instance, let's look at some of the data recently collected from the Arboretum. I'll go to the data that was just collected. Hopefully I didn't mess with it too much. This is in my own directory structure, so you won't exactly see this. But I'm going to just show you what I mean. The most recent data collected from the Arboretum, as it comes up. Shoot, I already corrected this one. This isn't going to show you what I want to show you. I'm going to look at a different one. I'll look at this one from Schoonover Park. This one's corrected too. If it says liters, it means it's been converted to liters already. I want to show you what the raw data look like that hasn't been converted to liters. This one is an example of that. This is the Long Marine Lab data that was just collected today by some of you. Here you have a date and you have a time and you have an event. That refers to a tip. So that would have been a 0.01 in the earlier format. So my point is, when we're converting this to liters, we have to divide the 1 by the number that you're going to see in the tipping bucket conversion. It might be, for instance, 120. So if I was to convert this to liters, I would say it's equal to this divided by 120. And that would give me this would give me the liters column. And then I could do that the whole way down. Just make it go. That's assuming the conversion was 120 for that one. I'd have to look that up on the tipping bucket conversion file that I talked about in an earlier video. If this showed 0.01 on the other hand, then I'd have to divide it not by 120, but by 1.2, because there's a factor of 100 between this event, which just represents the number of tips, and the 0.01, which represents what was thought to be the volume per tip. One of the complications of changing data over time, the way we collect data and the type of data logger and things like that. So I apologize for that. If that's confusing, go ahead and email me or talk to me about it, and I'll make sure it's resolved for you. It's not a complicated thing, but it could become a bee in the bonnet if you do it wrong and then produce a file that has some of one type and some of another. Some of them will be a factor of 100 off and some of them won't, so we'll have weird results. That's not what we want. Okay. That being said, I'm going to go back to looking at some actual data that I did combine, and I did do the conversions correctly. At least I sure hope so. This is for the Arboretum. This was just collected today. The latest data from this was collected today. And since I did collect, let's see here. So I'm going to stop this video, and because I want you to just see this correction, I'll produce another one in just a minute.